Hey guys.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us again. We're excited.
Yeah.
It's been a fun week, like hearing from you guys, and again, thank you for your support and your kind words. And I even heard from a few people that like they shared it with other people, which was really nice too. Very complimentary. Um, so we met. We talked about this last time we met in July. We started kind of like dating by the end of that month. At the beginning of November, I found out I was pregnant.
Yeah. So it was like, happy birthday. Yeah.
He has a November birthday.
Yeah.
So, yep. Yeah, I got to tell you just before your birthday that you were going to be a dad. And I think it's safe to say that, like, regardless of what situation you're in, because we've done this twice, the second time was actually planned. And no matter what, you're kind of shaking a little bit. Like, I know that like with the second one, there's a little less like, oh no, what are we gonna do?
We knew what to
But
expect.
like, we knew what to
point.
expect a little bit more. But like, I think no matter what, when you see that positive, especially if you're not expecting it, they're like, you're shook.
Yeah. It's definitely when Rebecca told me I was going to be a father. It was big. It was big news. We were kids. Now going to have a kid. We
didn't know each other
really that well. Like 3 months in a relationship, you haven't had hard conversations yet.
How deep can you know each other?
Yeah.
Especially when most of our relationship revolved around just like going to parties.
Pretty much, yeah.
And hanging out and just having fun. And so
both of, like, for me, I was done with the physical college piece, but I had to finish an internship. I was set to move to the East Coast to work at a tourism business, and Rebecca had other plans for late that summer as well. So
we weren't really planning on it making long term. We were just kind of having fun. So when we found out, it was a shock. I do remember, and something I love about you is that the night that I told you that I was pregnant, I had already been able to sit with it for about 24 hours. I had taken 4 pregnancy tests and even gone to a doctor's appointment to confirm that I was pregnant. I had some time to sit in it, and I remember telling you, like, hey, I'm pregnant. I'm going to keep the pregnancy. I'm going to move forward with that because that's for my own conviction, right? But I remember telling you my choice isn't your choice. And I don't want you to stay with me because you feel like you have to stay with me. I realize you have other plans. And so if you need to go, you need to go. No strings attached. This does not have to be your choice. You have a choice too. And I gave Tyler this out. Like, if you're not ready for this, I get it. I'm not ready either. I'm choosing to move forward, but I'm not going to force you to move forward. And you chose to stay.
Yeah. And like right now, we're almost 20 years in together.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, love now is the is what's keeping us together. But I think sometimes, I know both of us are kind of stubborn people sometimes too. So just being stubborn people, I think. I mean, not in that aspect, but like
that's helped and hindered over the years.
Yeah, but I think that, like, I'm not gonna give up. I'm gonna see this through, and I think that's one of my biggest things that I'm good at is like being flexible. So it was a change. I had a plan, but yeah, I wanted to see it through. I wanted to be a part of that.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
It worked out. It worked out. It doesn't always, though. So we've shared, statistically speaking, that's one of the things that made the odds against us. The statistic that I had shared from a specific study was that couples who start the way that we did, with pregnancy prior to being married, have a 200 times more, they're 200 times more likely to get divorced than people who wait until after they're married to have kids. So this was actually something that, while it did work out, it often does not.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, I don't know, why do you think that is? I mean, I could think of several reasons why
100%.
relationships would fail on that.
So the thing is that if you don't, there's so many layers to parenting, and we'll get into those more like later. But like, you're coming at parenting from a different angle than I'm coming at parenting, and so like even just deciding what kind of parents you want to be, that layer. But then also like adding kids is financially hard. It requires like a massive jump in your own like maturity in terms of like being willing to step away from things that you used to do, to now commit to your child and to your family.
And that's friends, that's hobbies.
Everything.
Yeah, it's everything.
Yeah, like being like, you actually, like, you sold a truck.
Yeah, I had multiple vehicles, and one was the booger, and the other was a truck, and I had to get rid of the truck. I didn't have to, but I needed to.
Yeah, like,
because I knew that like I didn't have the monetary means at that point in my life, or career even really started. So
yeah, neither of us were making great money. But you sold a truck to help pay for the birth of our son, and then you took odd jobs, like you made candy.
Yeah, my old roommates and I, we knew, actually a friend of ours' aunt had a candy business, so we made candy, hard candies and trail mixes and stuff. It was a weird job, but paid some bills.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, I think you just modeled that really well in terms of like, once the shock wore off, and even during the shock, as we were like preparing to be parents, like, you, obviously both of us made mistakes going into it, and things that we would do over again. I'm sure I can speak for myself. But based on conversations we've had too, like you've had that too, where you're like, I wish I would have done X, Y, Z different. But I will say, like, one of the things that I think did make a difference for us anyway is that like you modeled that so well, in that all-in mentality. And like,
yeah, I think you have to be.
You were like, this is my family now, and I'm going to support you, whether, and it was even like whether you and I made it, like you were committed to the success of me and our child just as much as you were committed to your own success.
And I think, going back to that statistic, besides, all of those obstacles that we just listed off, and probably dozens more.
Even more, yeah.
We also, like, were seeking out the positive, right? So there's people in our lives that popped in, that helped. Parents, number one. Aunts, uncles, old roommates. I mean, I think back to the people who came to Dylan's first birthday, or people who visit us in the hospital.
I had a friend of mine that came over.
Wow.
Like, for years, she would come over all the time. We'd go to church together. We did everything. Like, she just suddenly was like, let's hang out all the time. So yeah. And then there were people that, and to be fair, there were people on the other side of it, that just kind of disappeared. They weren't ready to kind of, and that's fine. I was 20. If you were not ready to grow up and be around a baby, I understand. Just so you know. That just were like, well, see ya.
Yeah. No, and I get it too. I don't think either of us have any hard feelings to those people who stepped out of our lives at that point. I think it was probably for the better for us too. I know personally, it all like solidified almost and hit home, not during the pregnancy so much, but like the actual birth. And that's when like,
yeah, there's like a weird saying that like
a
woman becomes a mom the minute she finds out she's pregnant. A man becomes a dad when he meets his baby for the first time.
Yeah,
like there's something
for me
to
that was totally 100%. Like, for the most part, like, yeah, I was supportive and did things, but it really didn't sink in until it happened. And then that, like, for me, like, it's just like, it's the hobbies, the friends, the things that you like to do, this basically the selfishness that I was, entitled to as a early 20 something.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of all melted away, and you're like, oh, that's not going to fit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you meet, like, I will say, even as a mom, like, carrying your baby, and then that first time, like, you feel it, but then I remember that first time, like, seeing Dylan's face, and I knew, like, this is my life is now, like, I'm gonna be a different person. Like, there's no turning back, because, like, this is a beautiful, beautiful baby that I am now responsible for. And again, like, mistakes have been made, and we have screwed up our kids in our own unique way, and we will, like I said, share more about that. But, like, I knew from the minute he was born, like, my heart was never going to be the same.
No, yeah, and for the better. Like,
Mm-hmm.
at this point, I'm 100% sure that
I have zero regrets in
or doubt that I'm in a better
choosing to
spot
keep him
now than I would have been if I would have stepped away, or
Yeah.
we would have never met. So
Yeah.
I totally believe that.
No, I think that definitely worked ultimately for our good. I also want to say one of the biggest things when I think about pregnancy and one of the reasons that it falls apart. So we're kind of talking about that support system and friends, but family.
Mm-hmm.
I am so grateful for the family members who stepped up. So my mom and my stepdad, they were the first ones that I told in my family. And if they were shocked about it, or if they were disappointed at all, I would never have known. They were like, okay, why don't you move home and save some money, and we're gonna help you out. And they just, like, it wasn't, there was zero shame, like, zero. I remember going into the conversation kind of, like, nervous and, oh man, what are they gonna say, and I'm disappointing people. And they were like, it's all right, we'll get through this and you'll be fine. Like, it's babies aren't the end of the world, and you're gonna be okay. And I was like, oh, like, that's a breath of fresh air. And so I was working but not making great money, and being able to, like, move home and not have to pay rent so that I could pay for, like, baby stuff was amazing. And I also want to give credit to your parents, because I remember you, on the day that you were going to tell them, you were freaking out.
And so, at that point, I didn't tell my parents for a while, like a long while. Like,
he was scared.
I was kind of,
Which that's fair. Like, that's a
Yeah.
scary thing to. And you had the advantage of not showing the pregnancy,
Yeah.
right? So,
and
like, you didn't.
living in a different city
Yeah.
at that point and everything. So it was like, yeah, even though I was committed, I was still, I had that, like, that almost like you said, shame
Mm-hmm.
of, what their, reaction would have been.
Yeah.
Being the oldest, the first generation college. So, like, kind of the first in my family to step out and do some of those things. And then, this curveball comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I was nervous about it. But then when I did, I remember that pretty well. Like, it was very
I remember getting a phone call from you.
easy at that point after
Yeah.
they were accepting of it and, helpful. Like, so they offered things, and, like, in the big picture, like, my mom was amazing, and my dad. And
And to be fair, I hadn't even really met them. Like, I had
Not really,
seen
no.
them in passing. I had dropped something off at your house at one point and saw them then. And I will say, that was in my full punk rock. And so, like, I'm sure they were like, oh.
I mean, they still are pretty, conservative.
Yeah. And so they were like,
straight-laced people.
Like, I'm sure, like, right? They were probably, like, my parents were kind of the same way when they met you, where they were like, this is like a party kid. What are you doing? They love you now. Um, but needless to say, like your parents had not really met me, and so there was that element, and they could have, and my parents hadn't met you either. When they found out I was pregnant, I had not introduced you to them, and so that's a whole other layer. But like, and my parents handled it beautifully. I remember getting a call from you though that day um, that you went over to tell them, and I was like pacing. Oh man, it's like I hope they're okay. And I get this call, and you're like, they want to meet you. And I said, should I come? Like, is it safe? And you were like, yeah, it's safe. And I remember pulling up, and I was like Tyler said, it took a while. So I was like, I was pregnant,
Yeah,
and
you were
I
100% showing.
100, like I had a full torpedo in my butt. Like it was, yeah. And so I showed up, and again, like there was zero shame, zero from your parents. Like it was more excitement. Sit down. We want to get to know you. Tell me more about who you are. And then they were like, and then your mom blew me away. She was running a daycare at the time, and she was like, "Hey, I'd love to watch this baby for free."
Yeah, and any of you out there who have kids and have daycare
Holy cow,
or
is
are
it
looking
expensive.
at childcare, it's like
I could not
I
have
don't know how
afforded.
people afford it.
I couldn't have afforded to pay for daycare on my salary. Like it couldn't.
No.
I couldn't have done
It's
that.
almost probably easier for people not to work than it is to pay for childcare.
To a point, yeah. Unless you're making yeah. And even then, sometimes you're just working. Like it's crazy.
So a huge blessing.
The fact that she was like,
and it's grandma.
Yeah, she was like, if you guys wanted to move over here, I'll just watch him. And I was like, guess what? We're moving to Loveland.
Yeah, and so we ended up with a little duplex.
We did.
South
Loveland, this little duplex. It was nothing. It was like 3 bedrooms, but they were little. 2 bathroom. I think it was 800 square feet.
Awesome.
No yard to speak of. In fact, our back, we had this little like 6-foot patio space. And then a fence, and the fence then behind that fence was King Soopers.
Or storage unit and then King Soopers or something.
Something like that. Like it was not glamorous by any stretch.
No, it was
but
walk
again,
to King Soopers and we could walk to Blockbuster.
The only way we could afford that was by the help of somebody else.
True. And it was a buddy from high school who ended up being our realtor later on. Had an uncle who had property and hooked us up with a decent rent.
Yeah.
For a young couple getting started.
So I think that like while there was a lot that you did or that we did to help make it work in that situation, later on we'll talk about I ended up doing a lot of counseling on my end to work through some trauma. We went to counseling together to work through some trauma and really come together as a couple and as parents. But in that first year, so prior to moving into the duplex,
prior marriage still,
we hadn't gotten married. Dylan had just been born, and we were living with my mom. And I do think one of the make or break things, if you know somebody in this situation where they're pregnant, they maybe unexpectedly they're not married, the make or break was the people willing to help and show their support and say, and like not shame you, but make you feel like you got this and it's going to be okay. I don't know that we would be here today without the support of other people. Like, I think that we could have worked really, really hard.
And use that stubborn drive that we both have, but without.
But I'm internally grateful for the people who stepped up to help.
Because it allowed us not only like help with just like positive affirmations, but it was also helpful to like when my mom or your mom or our parents basically would say like, I'm going to watch the baby go out on a date. Because like we didn't.
Our parents were so good at that. They were like, hey, it's been a while. Can I take the baby and you guys go out to dinner? And we were like, they did not wait for us to ask.
No, and I think that's huge because we still needed to know each other and work on each other.
And our parents saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they like poured into us.
Instead of just being, you know, two kids having a kid and almost not strangers, but knowing each other very surface level at that point in the beginning. And then,
and it helped.
Yeah, that extra help helped us build a relationship together.
Yeah. So
100%.
And the thing is, like,
that 200%.
helping somebody in this situation does not have to be giving them a place to stay. It doesn't have to be giving them cheap rent or taking care of the baby. Sometimes those things were fabulous. If you could do that, do that. But not everybody can do that. If nothing else, like I said, like encouragement, support, show up.
An ear, yeah, like
hang out with them. Like, don't make them feel like their life is over because they're having a child. Like, invite them out.
Even if they'll say no. Like, even if you know they're going to say no.
Keep inviting them.
Keep inviting them.
Make a meal for them. Surprise them with coffee. Bring diapers. My favorite visitors. I had one friend that every single time she came, she brought a pack of diapers. And diapers, man, you go through those. So that was always like, don't bring me a cup of coffee. I can make coffee. Please bring me a pack of diapers.
Yeah.
It's not glamorous, but these little things, they make a world of difference. So if you're in the situation, if you and your partner are expecting a child and you are not married and this is a surprise, I want you to know that it's going to be okay, that it can be okay, and like lean into the help that people offer. And
the other side too, even if you're expecting it, I think all of this is great feedback for anybody who's in the situation of welcoming a child into the world. It's going to be hard either way.
For sure. Except
parenting isn't easy.
It's not. There's going to be a lot of sleep. We'll talk about this later. There's sleepless nights ahead. There's facing your own trauma ahead. There's deciding what kind of parents to be ahead. In this moment when you're expecting, lean into the help as much as you can, and even afterwards, ask for help. But when people offer it, take it. And know that you're going to be okay. If we can do it, anybody can.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
All that to say, we're here.
Yeah, and we'll pick up,
We'll pick up here next time.
Yeah. As we continue our little story. Again, ask questions.
Lessons we've learned.
Drop a note.
If you have questions, and sound off, like, what were things, so as we talk about what was helpful to us, maybe there's some people listening, like, what was most helpful to you when you were going through this, like whether you were the woman being pregnant or if it was your partner pregnant, like what was the most helpful or who was the most helpful, and maybe give them a little shout out as like tag them in this or something, like, hey, thanks for being so helpful. Let's start something positive and celebrate those people who are willing to show up for us.
Yeah.
So, and thank you for those of you who show up for us.
All right.
Bye,
See you
next time.